4th Street.
Welcome to Pine Island's version of Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, right. Well, Tammy's here, so we have our celebrity.
Yeah, we've got a quorum too.
I have to unmute for that.
And I have Kelly in my center square, so what does that say?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
good thing I chose a very exciting background for you all.
We have a couple minutes yet and we'll get started. Courtney, are you somewhere in the area?
Yep.
So as we move after we call to order, you want to flip right to that American flag.
Yep, I can do that. I do have you guys live right now on Facebook, so anytime you're ready.
Okay. Well, we'll wait. I think Jason Johnson needs to join us yet.
Okay.
Then the other thing I wanted to note is there is a request that was brought up by Hennepin County and then also a little bit by the city to.
So Mayor, I'm going to mute myself. This is Bob. As incredibly obnoxious as it is, I have 2 council meetings tonight and I'm watching the other one on my right shoulder right now. So I'm going to mute myself and watch that one and participate in this one as well. This is my regular meeting, so I'm all here for you, but I'm going to pay attention.
We're gonna. We've got a couple issues we want to have your opinion on tonight.
You bet, and I'll be here for you. I'm just going to mute for a second.
Sounds good. Well, it's 7 o'clock. Jason's on now, so I will call the May regular city council meeting to order. The first order of business on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, under the consent agenda this month, we've got the minutes from the May 6th special council meeting. And you've all had a chance to read them, so.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Got a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Any discussion, questions? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, you know what? We can't do that. We got to do a roll vote. Sorry. So we'll start. Kelly.
Aye.
David. Mike.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you. We'll move to administration and legal, and we've got Brad here who's going to give us the abridged version of his findings. Brad, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you go. This is the 2019 audit, and it's your show.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'm assuming everyone can see the presentation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And you can hear me, obviously. So as the Mayor said, I am here to present the 2019 financial statement audit report. With this, we'll go through the opinion. We'll first start with the opinion, our responsibilities, the general fund results, all the other governmental fund results, enterprise funds, and then at the end, we have some key matrix as far as comparing your city with other cities within the county, as well as throughout the state of Minnesota of cities of similar size and population. So first, our auditor's opinion. We are issuing an unmodified or clean opinion on our financial statements this year. So that is the opinion you're looking for when you have an audit performed. We're saying that everything in the financial statement is materially stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The state auditor's office requires us to go through a series of checklists as well as part of our financial statement audit, and that is they want us to look at different state statutes to make sure you're following those throughout the process, throughout the year as well. So those would include things such as, are you investing or have your deposits in appropriate funds or investments? If you're purchasing any capital items, entering any contracts, are you following different contract and bidding statutes? So different things like that that they require us to go through as well. And we have one finding reported under legal compliance this year. I'll talk about that on the next page. With these two findings, so the first finding is related to internal control, and as part of arriving at our opinion and developing our tests for the financial statements, we'll look at your processes and internal controls within the city. If there's anything in those controls that we feel that should be brought to your attention, we include them as a finding on here. The first one here is the preparation of the financial statements, and that is really internal control finding, because the where we're getting the information to prepare the financial statements is the same place that's reviewing those financial statements. So it's really there's no really checks and balances there outside of that one person just taking a look at them to make sure everything's in there. So we prepare the financial statements as part of the process. However, it is management's responsibility to prepare those financial statements. So this is really just here to outline that responsibility. So we didn't see anything in the financial statements, again, that we would raise concern about, but that's just it. This is just an internal control finding related to that. The second one, as I alluded to earlier, is the related to Minnesota state statutes, the legal compliance finding. State statutes require all claims go to council for approval. There was a batch in August due within the transition with administrators that didn't make it to council for approval. So that's where this finding is coming from. We reviewed that batch. We didn't see anything in the batch that was unusual or that was inappropriate that should be paid, but it is something that that we caught with our sample of our disbursements. Prior year finding that was resolved, we didn't issue any material or didn't propose any material audit adjustments this year. So the trial balance when we came in to do the audit was materially accurate. So this is good news. You're getting good information. It just shows that you're getting good information throughout the year as well. When you're looking at financial information that you can rely on it. So it was good to see that one removed. Now we get into some of the results. General fund results here. You have a general fund balance policy of to keep your reserves above 35%. You have maintained that over the last 5 years here presented. This year you're real close at that 35%, but still right in line with your policy. You can see how your fund balance or your budget, that red line at the top, has been increasing. Since that's been increasing, your fund balance has maintained that 35% reserve level too. So just shows that you're watching what you're spending throughout the year and following what you're budgeting. General fund budget to actual. So this is the overall result or high level summary of the results of the general fund this year, your budget amounts compared to your actuals. Revenues were within about 1.4% of what you had budgeted, and expenditures were within 1.7% of what you had budgeted. So again, just you're monitoring what you're putting your budgets, doing a good job putting your budgets together, and then monitoring those throughout the year. Overall, you had a decrease in fund balance of about just under $30,000 to finish at about $1,020,000. It's almost a break-even year for the general fund. This chart shows where your revenue sources are coming from, and I think you all know that majority of your revenue comes from property taxes, and those have increased slightly over the last 3 years. Your state aids or your intergovernmental is primarily what that is made up of is state dollars. That's held pretty consistent, had a slight decrease this past year, but for the most part, your taxes and state aids are where you're getting the majority of your revenue to support your general operations. Then your expenditures, these can fluctuate from year to year, but generally stay fairly consistent. Your general government did increase slightly in 2019. There was some costs related to the transition with administrators, so that was spent, and there was additional engineering fees spent out of the general government department. Public safety has a steady increase, and as well as public works from year to year. Special revenue funds. So these are funds, these are outside the general fund. These are funds where you're receiving money that is either restricted or committed for a specific purpose. So you have 6 of these funds. And really what we were looking for here is, are your revenue sources meeting your expenditures in each of these funds? So each one of them are doing fine. You did spend a little more than you received in your gambling or your charitable gambling donations fund this year. That was spent on fire department equipment and other fire charge or expenses. So, which is what that is for. So, capital project funds. Here, anytime there's a deficit, we always recommend that you take a look at those funds with deficits. These are funds that are set aside for capital equipment purchase or different projects that you have going on in the city. So you have 2 funds this year with deficits: the capital equipment fund at just under $200,000 deficit, and your Fifth Street Southwest project fund. So that capital equipment fund, you do transfer money in there each year to support that fund. This past year, you bought a plow truck and a pumper truck. That pumper truck was financed with your water fund, though you have like $480,000 amount due to the water fund out of this capital fund. But so that's what's causing that deficit. But that'll be repaid, and that deficit should be eliminated. But that Fifth Street project fund, you will want to take a look at that and see where those funding sources are coming from. Actually, you do. I just recall you do have a $40,000 receivable from the county at year end, which was received in March of 2020. So that deficit will go away in 2020 with that $40,000 payment from the county. Your debt service funds. I like the chart at the bottom. It just shows what your annual debt service requirements will be over the next 10 years. So you can see over the next 4 years, you have about $1 million being paid out related to bonds. This is outside of your enterprise fund bonds. So and then it starts to decline after that. And again, here we're looking at does your total cash and total assets, are they not going to the deficit? So you are creating enough revenue support with your taxes and assessments to support your debt service requirements. Then we get into enterprise funds, your water fund first. The top chart just looks at your total operating receipts. We compare that to your operating disbursements. So we want to make sure that your receipts are meeting your operating disbursements plus your debt service requirements for the year. And you can see in each one of these years presented, you are meeting those requirements. Then you can see in your cash balances, you can see the trend that has been over the last 4 years. In 2016, you had almost $2 million. You're down to about 1.5 now. A lot of that decrease this past year, though, was related to the transfer or that interfund loan that you used to borrow to purchase that pumper truck. So that was almost $500,000. So that had a lot to do with that decrease in 2019. Sewer fund, same thing with the chart up above. Sewer fund doesn't have any debt associated with it, but you are meeting those operating disbursements with your receipts. You can see from 2017 through 2019, you've had a steady increase in your cash balance. That red line at the bottom there is, we wouldn't want to see that the unrestricted cash go underneath that line. So that's because that's a line that's it's 50% of your operating costs for the next year. So we always recommend you want at least 50% of your operating costs for that following year, because you are receiving user charges throughout the year as well. So you don't need 100% of that, but you do want to have enough cushion there just in case something happens where you're not collecting any receipts. The Evergreen Fund. So here, pretty much break even at each year with the operating disbursements, debt, and receipts there. You can see your cash balances have stayed pretty consistent. And that's kind of what you'd see with a fund like this, where you're collecting receipts or collecting rents to pay those debt service requirements on that loan, on that bond. So nothing unusual here or significant. Your cemetery fund. Cemetery fund had more disbursements this year than receipts. However, you do have a decent cash balance in here to cover those types of things, where some of those years you're going to have those disbursements higher than receipts. But again, you don't have a ton of disbursements the charts are the same size, but the dollars are a lot smaller. The total revenues here are $30,000 compared to your disbursements of 25. So definitely cash balance is enough to cover this activity. Deputy Registrar. Again, dollars are much smaller than the water and sewer funds, but you can see your receipts in 2019 jumped up quite a bit. You did receive about $30,000 from the state related to the implementation of the new licensing system. So they reimbursed it for the additional costs and what everybody had to go through to implement that system. So that was really the increase there in 2019.
You shut Cleo's cage.
And then the cash balance is at the bottom. You can see where your cash balance increased as well from 119 to 179. So Deputy Registrar Fund had a good year this year, especially with that contribution from the state. Cash balances, so just total cash balances by year. You can see from 2018 to 2019, the biggest change there was in your capital project funds. You can see that was kind of that red color. That is the red color in each of those bars there. You can see from 18 to 19 that decreased. Again, a lot of that had to do with the purchase of the pumper. So here we compare your city with other cities within the county, which is the gray bar in each one of these charts, as well as cities throughout the state of Minnesota, fourth class cities. So these would be other cities around the state of Minnesota with under 10,000 in population cities. So so your tax rate, you can see you're on the kind of on the higher end of that related to other cities within the county. But what I always like to look at, it's every city is a little different. So you just want to look at the main thing you want to look at here is the trend in your city. You can see you're hovering around that 80% each year. So you're not, you don't have a trend, it's not trending upward necessarily. And it's not fluctuating from year to year. So holding steady at that 80% mark. Taxes per capita on that lower chart, you are pretty comparable with others within the county as far as what residents or per resident is paying for taxes. Those again slightly higher than others throughout the state of Minnesota. And being higher in those other categories, this long-term debt per capita really shows where that's coming from. You're paying more debt per resident than other cities in the county. Well, within the county, you're pretty close, but throughout the state of Minnesota, you're a little bit higher. Then the debt expenditures per current expenditures is that lower chart. So of what your general operating expenses are, how much are you spending for debt related to that? And you're a little bit higher there as well. Your current expenditures, though, so this is just your general day-to-day operating expenditures. With these types of expenditures, you are comparable with others around the state and within the county. So again, your higher tax rates, your higher debt per capita is really related to your the projects you've done and the bonds you've issued related to those and to support those activities and the capital you've done. You can see the capital expenditures down below. You can see in 17, 18, and 19, you've spent more per resident on capital expenditures than peers across the state. In 2018 and 19, you're about the same as what was in the county. This breaks apart your general fund or all your funds in by department or by function. So you can take a look at this. There's a lot of information on here, but really you're pretty comparable in most categories with all these different functions. Then the last chart, the water fund debt service coverage ratio. So here we looked at it a little bit with our water charts earlier, but here we want to make sure your cash that's being generated from your operations is enough to cover your debt service requirements. So if it was covering 1-to-1, you'd be at 100%. So you're definitely covering those debt service requirements with your operations, as well as setting money aside for capital purchases in the future. So definitely doing well in your water fund. I believe that's it. So I guess to wrap up, I think the city had a good year. I think we had a really good audit this year with everything Carol and Elizabeth and Stephanie put together. So made it a smooth process, even though we did everything remotely this year. So that was quite a bit different than we have done in the past. But I think we got everything we needed in a timely fashion, and I think they did well helping prepare for the audit. So I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions, council?
I just want to say, Brad, thank you for the great presentation. This is a lot of information to sift through. So it's nice to have it explained out, especially those graphs where you compare us to other cities of Goodhue County. It's just good perspective to have to look at those numbers.
Yeah, that is. I think people do like to do compare themselves to others. And again, I just make sure you're watching the trend in your city, but I definitely understand the comparison aspect of it as well, for sure.
Brad,
Right.
is there any way we can incorporate we're a bi-county city.
Yep.
We actually have 2 counties. And Goodhue County, we've got a few peer cities in Goodhue County, but we've got more peer cities in Olmsted County. Is there any way in those graphs in the future we could incorporate the peer cities in Olmsted County so we can see what Byron and Stewartville and Eoda, because we seem to be more kind of in tune with what's happening in those cities than Cannon Falls or Redwood, honestly. So
Yeah, absolutely. We can easily make that change. I'll put a note in the file for next year to use Olmsted rather than the Goodhue County.
well, can you use both?
I could use both too. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get rid of the Goodhue County, but I think,
Okay.
as we analyze our basic procedures, a lot of times we look at the Byrons and Sturtvilles and Eodas, not necessarily a little bit Zumbrota, but we don't really get a lot into the Cannon Falls area. And I just
Sure.
think it might be a really more broad informational thing.
Yeah, we could easily put 2 counties in there.
Okay.
Yep. I'll add it.
Any other questions for Brad?
No,
Thanks,
thank
Brad.
you.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Thanks and nice job, and
Yeah.
go have some dinner.
Thanks. And again, I just want to appreciate all the hard work that staff did too. So
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. All right. We'll move, I guess, to let's see, item B on the administration and legal, which includes a mayor's proclamation for time of appreciation for Pine Island High School class of 2020. And I think I'm going to read it just for the public that may be viewing. This is a proclamation, whereas 2020 gave way to unprecedented circumstances which prohibited typical high school graduation, year-end activities, and celebrations. And Pine Island High School whereas Pine Island High School seniors have exhibited incredible strength, resiliency, and Panther pride. And whereas the class of 2020 makes our community and school system a fantastic place to live and learn. And whereas educators at the Pine Island schools work closely and passionately with our students and families to provide a wonderful education. And whereas Pine Island High School class of 2020 makes our citizens proud of their commitment to responsible citizenship in this unprecedented time of COVID-19. And whereas the class of 2020 will be our future leaders, pioneers, creators, motivators, and role models. And whereas the community of Pine Island supports and congratulates all the students who will continue to influence our community long after this current crisis has ended. Now, therefore, I, Rod Steele, Mayor of the City of Pine Island, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim May 22nd, 2020, a time of appreciation for the dedication of the Pine Island High School class of 2020, who have worked hard, persevered, and risen to the challenges before them. Dated 19th of May, 2020. And then right beyond that in your packet, you'll see a little dissertation I put together where I'm going to award a key to the city for this year's graduating seniors. And just wanted to read that publicly. So, okay.
Thanks, Mayor. That's nice.
Yeah, you're sure welcome. And it's from all of you. So we will move to, let's see, we're talking about food trucks. Item C, a food truck update from city staff. And then we've got David and Megan Hewitt here for some comments. In your packet, you saw Stephanie was diligent enough to put together kind of a poll of our various communities in our area and how they handle this situation. Some of them are proactive, some of them are very passive, and everything's unique. So I think you had a chance to read through them. We've got a unique situation, and I'll let David address his own situation, but we've got a situation where we've got this, because of this virus, we've got some very struggling restaurants. And so this is a very sensitive issue. I want the council members to be sure and opinionate, but I also want you to remember that as council members, our primary focus, our primary responsibility is to represent and be good stewards of the citizens' tax dollars. So with that, I will just go ahead and open it up for discussion. City staff, you've got an update you want to walk through, Elizabeth, and then we'll invite David and Megan Hewitt to present their request.
Yeah, I definitely can, Mr. Mayor. As you stated, Stephanie did quite a bit of research and she broke it down in the packets. She kind of put it together. She did a fantastic job reaching out to all the communities. As you can see, there's a little bit of everything. Some communities regulate it, some communities don't. Some people have more relaxed ordinances, some have none at all. So there really isn't one uniform guideline and ordinance that other cities are following. So really, my biggest suggestion is that, you know, we need to create something that caters to Pine Island, that there really isn't a trend here. It doesn't seem like a lot of communities our size in the area are doing one thing or another. So I think it really gives us the opportunity to formulate something that really works for our individual community.
Yeah, I'd invite some council members' opinions on this. You had a chance to read through the language on some of the communities. You know, we've got, you know, and I don't like to pattern our procedures under everybody else, but you know, it's being requested, so we need to probably act somehow. But I'd be interested in some opinions from the council members.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead, Kelly.
Okay, sorry. I would like to thank, as Elizabeth said, thank you to Stephanie and other city staff for compiling this. It's a great perspective to have, again, to see how other communities do it. If you see in your packet the email response from Plainview, sounds like the same discussion we were having a few months ago. So it was interesting to hear that same thing vocalized from another community. I also liked how in Cannon Falls ordinance, they do have a definition for a mobile food unit. And it's a lengthy description. I'm not going to read it in its entirety, but it helps to have a definition to this when we look at future ordinance language. But again, it's nice to see a breakdown of all the different communities. And again, like Elizabeth said, tailoring something to this community specifically, whether we have a task force with the local businesses or we somehow prioritize local establishments when we set up this ordinance. I just thought it was great reading material to have all this information from local communities.
Thank you, Kelly. Mike?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And Stephanie, thank you for your work. I know this kind of work is exhaustive and you've got some good information here. You know, last month we tabled this discussion until we could get to a meeting time where we could have, you know, more people present, more people that this might affect. So, I mean, certainly we can discuss tonight. I'll be transparent. I encouraged David and Megan Hewitt to submit a proposal for their ice cream trailer outside of any food truck ordinance, just because I think we're months. I think we're well down the road past ice cream season before we get a food truck ordinance in place. So tonight I'm hoping, obviously we'll hear from David and Megan, but I'm hoping we can separate the two, take a look at their proposal. Certainly continue to discuss food trucks if we like. I'm very much in favor of a food truck policy in place for Pine Island businesses, Pine Island people. So what that looks like, we can continue to talk about, but.
Any other council members?
I agree with Mike. We definitely need to do something sooner and later, get this done.
Mike, could we, or Elizabeth, could we address David and Megan's situation with a conditional use until such time as we could craft an ordinance? Because ice cream season is June, July, and August. It sure as heck isn't November and December. So, and I know the public really enjoyed what went on when they had their grand opening. But is there any way we could do a conditional use permit for?
I mean, really, we don't have an ordinance that allows or disallows food trucks. So we really don't have anything on either side. And Bob, stop me if I'm misspeaking as well. But I think we could definitely place something in the interim while we're having these discussions regarding food trucks, because I know it's probably going to take a while to actually craft exact ordinance language. And I know council at last month's meeting said they wanted, before they made any decisions, they most likely wanted to wait until we could actually have a public hearing for the members of the public to come speak on food trucks. But I know David and Megan are here speaking tonight, and I know this is kind of a fluid topic just because of everything that's going on with COVID-19 as well. So I believe that we could do something that could allow them temporarily to operate if we wanted to move in that direction this summer.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Who's this?
It's David.
Yeah, you're a little broken up, but I can hear you.
Try to be. So what's the difference between using, are we not allowed to serve ice cream out of a shop yet, or is this just a specialty thing?
We should let the Hewitts speak, maybe.
Yeah, and Dave, I see David's had his hand up several times. We'll let him address that question. Bob, I'll be interested in is there any way we can do a conditional use to allow a trailer on Main Street to sell ice cream through the summer months until we can craft an ordinance that addresses all food trucks?
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, Bob Vo, City Attorney. So just a couple of comments about sort of where we're starting from. Obviously, as is always the case, the policy you want to have for Pine Island has everything to do with you and nothing to do with me. But the starting point, I think the typical starting point for cities is that you're not allowed within incorporated cities to use either the public right-of-way, streets, or the sidewalks around streets for commerce unless cities allow you to do that, right? The general presumption is you're not allowed to set up a stand in Main Street unless the city has told you can set up a stand in Main Street, and you're not allowed to set up frankly, obviously kids do it all the time with lemonade stands, but you know what I mean. I mean, in downtown, you can't set up a sales booth on a sidewalk unless the city has told you can put up a sales booth on a sidewalk. So that's the general principle that cities operate under. And then to your point, Mayor, is there a way for the city to change that to allow food trucks or an ice cream vendor or whatever the animal is that we're talking about? Sure, there is. I'm not sure that a CUP, though, is the best way to do it, because typically cities don't view public rights of ways, streets and sidewalks as a zoning district. And of course, a conditional use permit grants the right to do something conditionally in a given zoning district. So you can do something with a CUP in a residential zoning district or not. You can do something in a commercial district or not with a CUP. Rights of ways are just not really a zoning district. And so it's awkward to try to use a CUP to grant rights to use the right of way. That said, the answer has got to be yes, of course, that there is a way for the city to allow its streets and sidewalks to be used for vendors and for ice cream trucks. And so can we get to yes? Yes. Can we get to yes right now tonight? I'm not sure about that. I think probably not, but could we get to yes at the next meeting? I think so.
Yeah, and the expediency is really important. Our next meeting is third week in June. Gee whiz, I mean, they're a third of the way through the summer. And that's, we're going to let them talk here in a minute, and then we'll have some question for them, but I don't know.
Mayor, this feels very much to me like, like a restaurant having table, like Let's Go Tacos gave us a proposal to put tables out in front of their building. We approved that, looking at their plan, whatever. I mean, we've got businesses doing business on the sidewalk. Yeah. So I guess I'd like to let them speak, and I don't know, see if we can flesh it out.
Yeah, well, let's reserve our questions and let David and Megan walk through their proposal here. I read it, and kind of give us kind of a short-term, long-term forecast on what you're going to do with that building.
Yeah, so first of all, Megan and I we want to say thank you so much to the council members, to the community. The support and encouragement has been overwhelming. This has been a process to try to get the permitting approved on a mixed-use building, and it's a daunting task. And we're now finally at a point where our permits are fully approved. The plumbers have been in, electricians in tomorrow. I mean, we're weeks away from having the inside done. The challenge is we're up against that, the building process. We're also against, CDC guidelines and kind of this, COVID experience for business owners and restaurant owners. And how do we best sort of navigate a model that will allow us to, one, open and serve? I mean, we really, with our event season being canceled this summer, we're desperately looking for a way to kind of focus hyper local and to be open in the very near term so that we can, provide for the community, but also for ourselves financially. We've looked at different models. We're food vendors. This is what we've done 12 years. We're excited to have a shop open. Hopefully, like I said, within the next few weeks, that'll be the case. We may be open with certain restrictions. We get that. So for us, we just thought, this is the best kind of case model for us moving forward, is to do, a curbside sort of outdoor venue. We also think it ties in great with kind of how we as a community are maybe starting to think in terms of more vitality and creative use of space outside, especially in the downtown core. So for us, there's a lot going into this decision. In the plan that we submitted, we requested May through August, which that's our ice cream season. But that really was more for the case of, hey, if it's a Saturday and we want to be a trailhead because that's a better opportunity, that would be fantastic for us to be able to be down at the Douglas Trail with our trailer. So we're looking for that flexibility, but really in the short term, until we can open the interior space for curbside and carry out, which is the current guidelines, this is our only avenue in the short term to open. And so I guess for a plan submission, we're looking for as temporary as until we can get our space open. And so last Friday was a great opportunity for us to really test case the outside venue, what that would look like, how we can properly do social distancing. We've talked with Rachel next door about, utilizing the front of her space to expand sort of that social distancing model when it comes to queuing up the line. We learned a lot Friday. We had a few more families come than we expected. So that created some real life scenarios about how do we properly stage and queue up people. A lot of it was really for mock. We weren't totally prepared for that. So we learned a lot. It was a good lesson for us. One thing that wasn't shown as it related to our plan submission is the visibility for traffic flow. I did a video in which I was showing traffic flow, and really the trailer's the size of a minivan, if not smaller. So it really provided no visibility issues. We actually found that the Pepsi machine at the hardware store was a bigger nuisance for visibility than the ice cream trailer. So that was slightly humorous, I guess. So for us, I mean, that's really what we're seeking, is the council to say, hey, we're going to give you use of this parking spot as an extension of your business, at least in the short term or this summer, for us to do that type of outdoor venue. Also within that plan, that our trailer is so small, it was designed for Thursdays on First, which has been canceled, probably will be for the whole season, but there's enough room within that 20-foot parking spot to have additional bicycle parking, which I think is important for that Douglas Trail audience that we're also catering to.
And to keep the sidewalk open.
and to keep the sidewalk open. I mean, especially for social distancing, trying to keep the sidewalk, the sidewalk as clear, you know, from bicycles and stuff as possible is helpful. So we kind of thought that was a bonus addition that wasn't originally part of our thinking. It was something we learned through that process. So if anybody has any specific questions about where we're at with the building project, I know some council members have come by and looked at it. But you know, we're a Department of Ag licensed entity. Our mobile trailer has been used for, you know, 10, 12 years. This is kind of that's been our business. So we're really excited to be here and in this community and be back. I mean, this is, oh man, it's so good to be back at Pineland. The kids are loving it. I've got 5 kids. So if you see them around, please help us raise those kids.
I've never seen your kids, Dave.
Yeah, right. Mike's our neighbor, so he's our new babysitter, you know.
David, I have a question. I'm looking at your drawing and I see, excuse me, the 7-foot egress.
Yep.
Between your building tables and your planters, I guess. So is that between where those tables would be, your 2 top tables and your planters, there's 7 feet there?
Yeah, so we're kind of used to how, and I apologize, I'm not comparing us to Rochester, but we're used to downtown Rochester. That's where we've been for a while. And we know that the egress requirements there are 40 inches, you know, that's ADA requirement as well. So we really are cognitive because one, we're building an ADA compliant interior as part of our space. So we really want to be conscious about egress requirements on the sidewalk. So that 7 feet is kind of a way to say, hey, we really are trying to expand that egress, one, to cater to the CDC guidelines for 6 feet of distancing, but also just to show that we want to maintain a really good flow because we do believe there's going to be a lot more bicycle traffic and pedestrians coming in that area. So really, how do we sort of mitigate and allow the egress for that?
Mr. Hewitt, I have a question.
Sure.
I've looked at the area, I've looked at your trailer. I don't think it will be a big issue at all, but are people gonna come up and buy their ice cream on the sidewalk side?
Oh yeah, yeah, we're totally planned for sidewalk side. That's the way we set it up Friday.
Online.
Yeah, and those pictures are on Facebook too if you need to see them. But yeah, it would be sidewalk service. You know, we've actually maintained a safe zone between the trailer and the street. I think it's 40 or 48 inches. So we want to reserve that in case people do walk around the trailer for whatever reason. They still have a safe distance to do that.
David, you mentioned your license with the Department of Ag. Is that how you license ice cream vendors?
Yeah, no. So
where's the Goodhue County Health Department enter into this?
Right. No. So we've had both Goodhue County as well as we've always been Department of Ag certified for the reason of this. We're a wholesale manufacturer of ice cream sandwiches. And we've always done retail on the streets and then our wholesale manufacturer, which we sell to even folks like Don Sanford, which some of you know. So Department of Ag is in the business of wholesale manufacturing. There's a certain point at which revenue on retail exceeds your wholesale revenue. And that's when you start getting into you can decide if you want to go health or ag. We've had both health come out, Heather, as well as Department of Ag. We fall under both retail and wholesale for Department of Ag. So we've had 2 different people out at the same time. The Goodhue County basically said, no, we really feel like you should still maintain Department of Ag licensure. So that's why we're maintaining Department of Ag licensure. It's one, easier because we're already a licensee. But 2, that was just the guidance of Goodhue County. So we did first seek Goodhue County Health as our governing entity. And it turns out we're maintaining Department of Ag. So we have actually a license for our production facility, which we use Otto's Bakery now. I'm sorry, our cookie production, and then our assembly area, which we used Island Market last year, which we're using our own facility in-house this year. And then we're also a mobile, seasonal mobile licensee, which covers the food trailer. And I pay a lot of property taxes too, so.
Yeah, and Bob, just that's my next point is David and Megan are business owners and property owners and taxpayers in the city of Pine Island. This isn't an outside agency coming in. It sounds like they've been inspected. So I don't know how we get from here to there, but we've got to come up with some way to allow them to have a good summer. The public loved their product a lot of good compliments on it. It does complement our food menu in Pine Island. It doesn't necessarily compete with other restaurants and what they're trying to accomplish. So it's a good complementary item, but you know, we've got to get these people in business somehow.
And if I may interrupt real quick, I was just going to say that after the last council meeting, we did make a really concerted effort to go and speak with the other restaurant owners that we could get a hold of, and even business owners that we didn't think really had an interest in this sort of discussion, which was surprising they did. For example, the meat market. I never would have thought about the meat market, you know, being a business that would entertain a food truck for their own business, but you know, he's been thinking about something of that nature to be able to show off his meats in front of the meat market. So from what I gathered, the context of food trucks from the last council meeting was really more about how do you feel about food trucks in general. Most of it was in the context of outside food trucks. Now having the discussion with restaurant owners, we're finding that the context really locally is about how do we as restaurants extend our models. And so there's overwhelming support for local restaurants wanting the flexibility for their own food trucks within the community. So I just found that interesting when I started asking the question that there's really two contexts to the discussion. And we were kind of focusing more on one context versus the other. So it's just something important to think about as we craft an ordinance, you know, moving forward.
Right. So
how often are we looking, Mr. Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt. How often are we is this going to be an everyday thing?
Is that a question for David?
Yeah, is this going to be an everyday thing that you're wanting to have this food cart out on Main Street?
Yeah, so right now our planned hours, and as you know, who knows, right? We don't know until the consumers say, hey, why aren't you open, you know, Wednesday afternoon? Right now our planned hours are Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, specific hours. But we would like the flexibility to be able, if we extend those hours, at least until we can open the interior store, to have the ability to use that parking spot.
The concern I have is that we have Second Street that's going to be shut down with construction, and the bank is going to have some of their parking taken away. So then that's going to be taking away some more parking on Main Street, which can impact some of the other businesses that are up there. And I think that should be addressed too, or at least acknowledged, because that's going to be coming up with in discussions when people are going to be asking for parking spaces, and we are going to essentially be taking 3 parking spots away on Main Street.
That's a valid point.
My response to that, David, was just from walking around town. There are 2 parking lots that have been fairly empty, you know, public parking lots that have been fairly empty within the same, you know, the same block corridor. Yeah, it might be, you know, a little bit further walk, but those are parking options that the city has accommodated for already, you know?
There's, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 2 parking spots, David, one in front of your building and one in front of Rachel Douglas's building.
Yep, that's right. And the plan was to leave that one closest to the intersection, you know, available for parking, just because one, that leaves the best visibility. And I think just for traffic flow, it's easier for cars to pull in and out of that spot versus trying to jump in front of a trailer. You know what I mean? And there is a one-way alley in front of the trailer. So for bicyclists coming off the sidewalk, that makes it really easy to pull into bike parking.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Bob, may I comment?
Absolutely.
Maybe just let me put in words what I think you are all, or most of you are thinking, which is, on the one hand, the city can't, or it's very unlikely that you want to just say right now or in an ordinance later, anybody can have a food truck anywhere in the city they want to, and there are no rules and you can do whatever you want. I mean, it seems unlikely that that's going to be what you want to do. And on the other hand, you can't just say, David and Megan, you can do what you've been doing, but nobody else can do this, right? I mean, that would be legally risky, obviously. So there's got to be a happy medium between those two. Everybody gets to do whatever they want, and David and Megan get to do what they've been doing. And I'm totally comfortable with you saying tonight, if that's the will of the council, and I get the impression it is, if you want to tonight say, David and Megan, you can continue doing what you've been doing, pending staff bringing forward a permitting arrangement or a licensing arrangement that allows everybody to come in, or anybody, I shouldn't say everybody, anybody that wants to come in and get a permit or a license, that's fine. I don't think there's a significant legal risk to saying tonight, good folks that have been doing a good job can keep doing what they've been doing. We're going to permit that, but we want staff to bring forward some sort of licensing, some sort of permitting regime to sort of formalize this. That's fine. I think the concern, if I can speak for Elizabeth, would be what is it you want to permit? What is it you want to license? Do you want to, for example, restrict this to only businesses that have brick and mortar shops in town? That would be a reasonable restriction that you could have. Or do you want to open this up to anybody? I don't know the answer to that. Do you want to restrict this to non-alcohol sales? I suspect you do. Do you want to restrict this to food sales of a certain kind? Maybe you do. I think there's a little bit of nuance here that Elizabeth, I don't know how she's going to just craft this out of thin air. But if you want to tonight say you can keep doing what you've been doing until staff brings forward an ordinance, I presume it'll be an ordinance that sets out the terms, that's fine. I don't think you can say you can keep doing what you're doing and we're not going to ever set up a system for everybody else to come in and get a license or get a permit.
Okay. Yeah, my thoughts were, if you're an existing, you call it a brick and mortar business in town, and you want to have a food truck, whether it be Carmen or Barry or anybody else in our community, I think we've got to facilitate that. I think we've got to help those people in every aspect. If you're going to come in from Owatonna and decide you're going to sell something, I think that's the whole different argument here. And I want to help David and Megan get their things started, but I think we need to confine it. And I don't know what kind of language Elizabeth needs to craft, but we have to confine it to people within our community that are presently operating food businesses that want to expand or go beyond what they've already got. So that would be my thought, but council, I'm listening. So
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'd like to make the motion to have city staff set up some type of ordinance for any existing Pine Island brick and mortar business to be able to have a food cart out front, non-alcohol sales. I don't know if that can be shaped a little better wording wise, but and the Hewitts, I don't have any problem with them selling their ice cream until that's put together.
Okay, we've got kind of a convoluted motion there, but I think we got the gist of it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Mayor,
I was going to ask Bob if in our ordinance language, I'm afraid that brick and mortar will exclude businesses like Don Sanford, who's been a Pine Island area resident for decades. Can we legally get in trouble if in our ordinance language we have a radius, say 10-mile, 20-mile radius?
No, and Elizabeth and I have talked a bit about this. No, I mean, intuitively you might think, gee, can we really restrict businesses to people that have other or existing businesses in town? And maybe intuitively it seems like you can't do that, but you can do that. That's legal, and there's a good reason for doing that. I mean, it seems to me that having a presence in town, paying local taxes, and being close, having facilities close to the food sales you're going to be conducting, there's a public health safety reason for wanting that. So there are legitimate reasons to restrict it that way, other than just wanting to favor your own businesses, which is also a legitimate reason, by the way. But there are other reasons in addition to that. And so, no, that's not a problem. You can do that. I don't know about, it sounds a little arbitrary to say a 10-mile radius, but every rule we're going to set is going to sound a little arbitrary. So that may be okay. I suggested brick and mortar, but that's, what I meant by that was just the business would have some connection to your community, and it's up to you to decide what that connection needs to be, but it's okay to require a connection of some kind.
Right. Thank you for answering that, because I was going to say, again, in the sample ordinance language from Cannon Falls, I do like their description of a mobile food unit, and I do like the idea of an annual fee. And then if council needs to review the plan, just like the Hewitts have submitted, we still have the availability to do that. So I would potentially want to add to Jason's motion something a little more broad than just brick and mortar.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we talked extensively last month when we were talking about food carts, about protecting our local restaurants. And I think this is what an effort on our part trying to accommodate a brick and mortar business by making some exceptions, because right now I feel like this request comes and we're being rushed into trying to make a decision about food trucks. We talked extensively last month about trying to protect our restaurants. And I think that's what this language is doing, is that we're trying to limit right now the ordinance or the exception to our brick and mortar buildings in town. I'm not trying to say that Don Sansford is not a asset to the community. He's been around a long time, but right now we're trying to protect some of our restaurants, given the very reason why we have to have this discussion, because we can't have people inside restaurants like we normally would. And that's why I make a second to Councilman Johnson's proposal that we draft some kind of an ordinance to recognize our brick and mortar restaurants in town being able to have a food cart right now, or a food truck.
Yeah, and the only person that can amend Jason's motion is him. So,
Mr. Mayor, may I for a minute?
absolutely. Your discussion period, right?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm happy that Councilman Johnson made a motion. And so I think we're right. We're not deciding anything on food trucks tonight, but to go ahead and start crafting something. And I like it for our local businesses. I like it with a radius, if we can do that. Feels like two different motions to me. So Attorney Vose said that we could, approve the Hewitt's plan kind of in an interim until we get an ordinance in place. Jason kind of tagged the Hewitt's plan onto the end of his motion. So maybe we should consider separating the two. If we have a motion and a second to begin crafting some kind of food truck ordinance, let's get through that. And then I think we should make a separate motion on the Hewitt's plan, so it's very clear.
So let's walk back through this, because we've all of a sudden interjected about 15 different attitudes. So Jason's original motion was to direct staff, correct me if I'm wrong, Jace, to start down the road of putting together an ordinance to not only allow David and Megan to do their thing temporarily, but to start addressing the food truck issue in the whole. Is that right? Or go back to what you originally said? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. And to include any business in town, a Pine Island business, it could have a radius, like Kelly says. I don't know how far out he is to be able to do this.
Right.
Food truck ordinance.
Okay. So Stephanie, can you tell us what the motion was before we vote on it here? Because I know we keep interjecting different concepts, and we have to know what we're voting on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay, Jason. Thank you for trying.
Okay, Stephanie, do you have anything written down for the motion?
She's muted.
Unmute yourself, Stephanie.
All right.
Unmuted.
There you go.
No, you're not.
Courtney unmuted me. I have a motion from Jason Johnson to set up an ordinance for businesses with brick and mortar to have a food truck with no alcohol. Seconded by Freeze.
And I believe Jason did say in front of their brick and mortar, so I don't know if you want to change that language or not.
Sure.
So how does that help David and Megan for the next month?
It's a separate, we're going to make a separate, I'm going to make a separate motion.
Okay. All right. All right. So Stephanie defined the motion. We have a second. We've had discussion. Is there any further discussion? There being none, we'll do a roll call vote. Kelly?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
And I'll say aye. Okay, now move into the next one, whatever that may be.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve David and Megan Hewitt's plan to put an ice cream trailer in the parking spot in front of their building. Important that we maintain that 7-foot egress that he's spelled out. Certainly ADA requirements. I'd like to give them approval to have it there through the end of September with a chance to review this at our next council meeting and just revisit. I think we need to just see how it goes for a month and take a look at it.
Mike, does that include them wanting to go down to the park?
No, I think that's going to fall into a separate food truck ordinance. I think at this time, my motion is just to approve the trailer in front of their building.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
I would like to remind you all that there's a very good diagram description of how exactly this would happen in the packet, both that visual and the written letter. And I think there's the great opportunity here to establish this and to build on it, so we as a community can be flexible and grow and accommodate this sort of, as Mr. Hewitt was talking about, increasing that community vitality as we change our operations.
Okay, any further discussion?
I would like some reassurances after seeing what took place on Friday, and given I know it's a novelty. I just like some reassurances that people wanting to use a sidewalk, whether they have strollers, dogs, or whatnot, that they're able to use that sidewalk uninhibited and not be stuck. Just that we know that there's not going to be that issue with traffic being able to move on the sidewalk.
That duly noted, David?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly going to do our best to create and use wayfinding and flow of traffic to help do that. I mean, we want this to be successful, and we certainly know that. I watch people walk the sidewalk every day. There's a lot of walkers. Mr. DeBoer walks by twice wanting ice cream, both times.
Right.
So I mean, we certainly want to make sure we're accommodating just the normal flow of community. So yes, David, we're going to take it seriously. I'm sure that there will be complaints and issues that come up, and we'll do whatever we can do to address it. And
well, we want
to be good neighbors.
David, we're not going to have a county deputy standing in front of your ice cream truck policing this issue. So it's going to have to be up to you, the business owner, to take that initiative. So if you see things starting to get haywire, you're going to have to step up and say, guys, space out or back off or whatever. I mean, we're going to have to depend on you. And I think that's what David Freeze was alluding to. We want to make sure you understand your responsibilities. So.
We have good intentions, and we're going to do our best to meet those expectations. But we'll have to address things as they come up for sure, and we'll take it seriously.
Any further discussion?
I would also like to ask that the things that were put in place tonight, we always have the opportunity to expand and amend those, such as our food ordinance, potentially having a bigger radius, or allowing Hewitts to locate in different areas besides just their storefront.
Yes,
I'm just looking to reassure that we can build on in the future.
Yeah, I think we can get there, and I want to get to a point where we can have. I think there's value to that, having our local businesses down at the city park, but I think this is a good start. So.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
I have one comment, Mr. Mayor. My one question, just because of the concerns of parking, would be whether the trailer would be parked there, when you are not in operation, or whether it would be moved out of that spot when you guys are not selling ice cream.
So there is some food, safety concerns that we have as it relates to moving trailers a lot. And that's just a general rule that we kind of have when we're doing events in the summer. To answer that question, I would hope that the days in which we are operating consecutively, it would be much more beneficial to leave that there. We could certainly put cones out or flags or whatever. Those days that we're not in operation, it'd be no issue for us to move it. I think we're going to need some flexibility to determine what is that best model for this. We don't know. This is a little bit different animal. We're used to being in an event, set up for a few days, or so I'm not sure. I don't know, Elizabeth, the direct answer to that, other than maybe some flexibility is warranted as we dial in the best use for that.
Okay.
Is that a
challenge? Is if that parking spot is taken and we need to set up, we can't tell people don't park there. So there may be some need to have it there consecutively just to maintain that spot,
How do we measure that though, David? I mean, with all due respect, how do we measure that? If there's flexibility, that could easily turn into 6-7 nights in a row. I'm not saying that it would.
Right. I mean, right now we're requesting use of that spot through the summer as an extension to our business. I think that's what the motion was. If there are more restrictions on that, I mean, we're open to those restrictions and being flexible. I'm just not sure that would be the best model for the use of this spot in terms of having a food unit there.
Mayor,
Yes, Bob.
if I may, what I contemplated, and I guess what I understand the motion before you to contemplate is that these good folks would be allowed to keep doing what they've been doing, basically, pending the city bringing forward and adopting a new rule, a new ordinance, a new whatever that provides for permitting for this kind of use. And when that happened, they'd have to get the permit and comply with the requirements. So they'd be allowed to do this as long as the city doesn't have any rules in place. But once you have rules in place, they'll need to get the permit and comply.
And just to follow up with that comment, maybe this will help, I don't know. But being that Goodhue County has sort of given their blessing, and there is no ordinance as it restricts, the use thereof or the granting of the use thereof, we do have, a license for this trailer by a governing body. It's not governed by Goodhue County, it's their road. So I do wonder if maybe you just do allow us to, you know what I mean? I'm trying to say this in a way that's like, what is the language other than just saying, keep doing what you're doing and we'll get some restrictions around it at some point, and we address issues as they come up. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as thoughts.
Okay.
And again, if parking is a concern, I walk downtown all the time. Both city lots are frequently relatively empty. So again, if there's parking concern, we're not like downtown Stillwater or downtown Red Wing, where parking is virtually impossible. We have great parking in the downtown area. It again may be, a half a block or a block walk, but we do have 2 public parking lots available.
We're still in discussion, right? The one thing that I did, I guess, forget, technically that spot has signage, 2-hour parking. That street superintendent Wayne King did address that concern so I don't, by motion or approving this plan, does that, can Elizabeth, can we just negate that 2-hour parking, or do we need to, I would be remiss if I didn't bring that up. I can amend my motion or something.
Todd, we want to take that sign down? He's muted.
Talking to me?
Yeah, Todd, can we just take that sign down?
Yeah, we can take it down.
Okay. All right.
One last time, I need some kind of reassurance, because what I'm very, very nervous about is I see a slippery slope if we're saying that we're going to let this cart sit out there for the next 30 days until our next council meeting, sitting there the entire time, being asked to give some kind of flexibility. I need some clarification. Is that what we're giving them permission to do right now? Is that's going to become a semi-permanent structure sitting on Main Street?
Yeah, that was the intent of my motion. Yes. I guess, yeah, so I don't, and if I need to amend it, and it says, his approval from Greg Isaacson at Goodhue County does say that, if for some reason city or county needs him to move that, so I'm happy to amend my motion, certainly to say that, for some reason for city business or street repair, utility, light, something, we need to move that trailer, that the Hewitts would move it. But yeah, I think we should, it's going to be 80.
What I'm getting,
I think we should sell ice cream and see how it goes.
Because I very much support this endeavor in the business. I've had David's ice cream and I very much enjoy it. Like I said, this could be a slippery slope where something happens in the city and for whatever reason we have somebody complain, and then we're just going to have another argument on our hand, and we're going to be coming back to this discussion all over again and being told that we said we'd give flexibility without some kind of a checks and balances. That's why I'm trying to see that if we can't avoid that, but maybe that's going to have to be met when it comes up.
And I think you take it by case basis on it. And I don't see an issue with it being parked there, honestly. I don't.
I think it's going to take some trial and error for the Hewitts. I mean, essentially they're new in business. So I think we need to give them some time to figure out what days, what hours. I think that's important.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think we'll be a lot smarter in 30 days than we are now when it comes to this situation. So I'll call a roll call vote. Kelly?
Mr. Mayor, I think Stephanie has something to say.
Stephanie?
I just wanted clarification on if, Mike, did you amend your motion?
Yes.
You did? Okay.
I'd like to, yeah. So amended my motion just to add that if city or county public works or utilities need that space to do some work, that the Hewitts will move that trailer.
Can we amend the second? Who is the second?
I have Johnson second.
Jason, you want to amend your second also?
Yeah, I'll amend my second.
Good. Okay. Roll call vote on the motion and the amended motion. Kelly?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
David?
I'm gonna vote aye with some reservations.
Jason?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion passes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was a good discussion. Let's see. I got to pull up my agenda here. We got a MS bike ride update. Who's going to give that? Kelly, is that you? Oh.
Yep, we should have a representative here. Yep.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. So I'm Lee Kilborn, and I am with the National MS Society. And I believe you all know by now that, well, first of all, thank you for agreeing to be a host city for us for the Ride Across Minnesota. So obviously this pandemic is wreaking havoc everywhere. So I wanted to get on and check in with you guys about, the latest restrictions and regulations that are in effect right now in Minnesota, and where we'll go. I know could be extensive, right? But right now, I've done a little bit of research just trying to find out what the state regulations are for large gatherings. So really that's kind of where I need to start. If you guys can help talk through that. I know that your mayor was just released, I think, a new proclamation. So, the cities, you guys are the only reason we can do this, this event. And we are obviously struggling as a nonprofit right now. We've had to cancel events, hundreds of them all over the country since March. So our hope is to get back to some in-person events. And, we're hoping that we're going to be able to pull this off. So do you know, Mr. Mayor, what kind of guidelines are you all putting in place for festivals and events of this type?
At this point, we haven't gone renegade. We haven't gone rogue.
Right.
Minnesota City tells us if we go against the written orders, they will not defend us. So we haven't been that wildcat city that's going to fight the system. So
Right.
all our restrictions and policies are based on what the state handed down. Until that changes, that's
Right.
probably the way it'll be, unless this council decides we want to do something different. So to answer your question, it's so fluid right now. We've got all kinds of opinions going on, and to ask where it's going to be in July or August, I think it's not answerable. You can't.
Right. So that's kind of where we are on our end as well. Our hope, of course, is to put the right on, but I know too that and especially not just you, but the cities themselves, you guys have all been impacted by this. In local restaurants and things, you're still, I'm sure, only operating at partial capacities. And I know it's going to be a challenge because typically as a host city, y'all provide that for the cyclists that come through. So I think I'm asking as a city, so, take the other requirements out of it. How do you all feel about being the host and understanding what we need?
And I did want to remind everyone on council as we're having this discussion, the proposed date that we're looking at is Thursday, July 23rd. So the MS Bike Ride is a 5-day event. So there are 4 or 5 host cities and you stop at a different host city each day on the route. So they kick it off on Monday, June 20th, and they end it on Friday, July 24th. So we would potentially be looking at these people, bouncing around to different cities, making their way to Pine Island. One of my biggest concerns leading this initiative with Anne Murray, another community volunteer, is that as a host city, we're going to need a lot of manpower. And I don't know if we can determine at this point whether we can fully get, Public Works, Lions Club, Boy Girl Scouts, if we can fully get those people to commit to help do the things that we would need to as a host city.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the group gathering number will be in July. Who knows? I mean, you're asking a question that we can't answer. I'm not going to go out there and theypublicly say, and I don't think the council wants to either, go ahead, we're going to run your 400 bikers in here and they're I mean, we just can't make that determination right now. And so I don't know. I mean, are we in favor? Absolutely. It's a great cause. We'd love to do it. We'd be honored to be part of it, but I don't think, I think we're still under the jurisdiction of what happens at the state level. Council, any other thoughts on that?
No, Mayor, I'll echo what you said. This is a great opportunity for our town, and I'm unwilling to cancel an event on July 23rd, but for sure, our hands are tied clearly, especially with our insurance through the League of Minnesota Cities that, we're not covered if we go outside of state guidelines. So that's important.
Maybe we can talk about it next month. Also, we might know a little more next month when stuff starts opening up on the 1st.
Well, and we'll definitely know more from our end as well, because of course we're working with all the host cities and trying to see, how exactly, we know the experience will probably be different. Because, at this point, we have over 300 people registered, which is great. But depending on when they registered, the pandemic may not have even been an issue, right? So we have to look at that and see in reality, how many people do we really expect to, take that risk. So at the moment, from what I could gather from, reading the latest proclamation and stuff, was that the group gatherings are restricted to 10 people through August 4th.
Who said that?
I believe it was the COVID health data website where you can go on and it shows you, kind of what the gathering restrictions are, when businesses are closed, that kind of thing. It doesn't have very detailed data, but that's why I was looking for some better information from the governor's office.
Right.
But I just couldn't quite locate it.
What's the, and excuse the term, what's the drop dead date on this? What's the date that we can't go beyond and still have it?
Well, and that's the good news, right? We've got plenty of, I say we have plenty of time. Of course, we're very anxious on our end, but we understand everybody's situation because we're in it too. So I'm going to say we kick off on the 23rd of July.
No, so the bike ride is a 5-day event, Monday through Friday, right? So Monday, July 20th would be host city number 1. And then Thursday, July 23rd would be us, host city number 4.
Oh, so I mixed them together.
Yep, sorry.
No, thank you. I mixed the date and the day together. So I would say we're going to need a month, probably June 20th, in order to really be able to make it happen.
Yep, thank you.
Sure.
Jason, that kind of addresses your comment there. We get at it next month and we make a decision. based on the current information. This could all change next week, guys. I mean, it could. So have to just kind of take it as it comes. But
Yep.
Lee, what else we got for you?
Nothing. I mean, I just really wanted to check in with you guys and make sure that, you know, we are trying to move forward. I know that you guys are trying to move forward. I know there are some concerns, like I said, local concerns about feeding and housing and all that kind of stuff. But I say for now, we just keep moving forward. We're going to do what we can to keep the fundraising going and registration, and your regular contacts who are furloughed right now will actually be back in the office in a couple of weeks. So joining your meeting next month is probably perfect. I don't know what date it is, but it should be around this time.
Yep, it's June 16th. I can just add you to the June's agenda and we'll get you the same information. Whether we're meeting virtually or in person, we'll pass that information along to you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, because I'm in Dallas, so I've not made it up there. I got to come last year for a different event, but hopefully I can come for this one. Who knows?
Thank you, Lee.
All right, well, y'all, thank you so much for letting me join you. And gosh, I want some ice cream. So I think lots of ice cream talk.
Yeah.
So I am going to go ahead and take care of dinner for my folks around here.
Thank you, Lee.
All right, thank y'all so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Item F, Tammy, you've been so patient sitting there waiting. I see you're in your office. You've got some things you want to update us on as far as the school.
I actually have a request. It's a little delayed request, but because of, so it was interesting hearing Lee.
Tammy, excuse me.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to remind me that I jumped over the item E.
You have item E yet.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And this should be a short one. We've got a resolution 20-20 refunding the prorated liquor license fee for the stay-at-home duration to our businesses that carry a liquor license. We're just going to give them that prorated fee back or credit them. So
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 20-20.
I'll second.
And a second discussion. I mean, it's not much. It's just a goodwill gesture, but it's something. So, although let's see. Now we'll do a roll vote. Kelly.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Let's see. Mike.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now Tammy, I'm so sorry. Item F, we've got an update from Superintendent Champa.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So I actually have a request and I just wanted to walk through what our graduation plan is. So it was interesting listening to Lee speak because our guidance for graduation is extremely narrow and limited. So many of you know we rolled out to our graduates and our families a week ago what our plan was, week and a half ago, 2 days later to get guidance from the state that restricted a lot of what we were planning to do. But I just want to comment that the partnership with the city has been just nothing short of phenomenal. Anytime we ask for help or could we possibly do this, it has been just met with so much support. So just want to extend our gratitude for that. What I'd like to request, and we've talked about this, but your meeting just fell so close to our graduation, is that we are planning to have a parade prior to graduation, which is a little backwards than what you might typically expect. But that parade lineup would start at Collins Park. And we do have permission from the county to utilize Main Street.
Oh,
and then we'll be wrapping around to get to the back parking lot of our school. And our intended time for that is line up at 7 on Friday night with the parade beginning at 7:10. And then we will start, our graduates will actually be on golf carts and we'll have kind of an outdoor theater experience for our families. So I'm hoping for permission from the council to go ahead with that parade route.
And I can say for the sheriff's department, I'm gonna have 3 cars there to help with traffic, and so everything should be fine that way.
Well, let's help Tammy out.
I'd like to move to approve the graduation parade plan as proposed.
Get a motion
I'll
to
second.
And a second. Any further, any discussion?
I want to commend the school for everything that you're doing right now to try to make sense of the unprecedented times we're in. The PowerPoint presentation that was in the packet was very well put together. It very clearly outlines what your plans are. You've obviously checked with the entities you needed to, like the county. As a reminder, if there's any public that wants to see the route for the parade, go to the Pine Island Public Schools Facebook page, and they have a graphic of that map that you can share with that updated time schedule.
And just if I can note that we will be updating that one more time. Instead of dropping off at the softball fields, we're actually going to take 7th Street and loop back down. Our fields are really wet right now, and we expect that they will stay that way. So we're going to have less student golf cart driving because we were expecting that to be wet conditions. So there's a minor change, but we'll get that updated as soon as possible.
Awesome.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor, or excuse me, Kelly,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and I'll say aye. Motion passes. Go for it, Tammy, and congratulations and nice job. The feeling's mutual as far as the city to back to the school. You guys have been wonderful for our community, and our growth is primarily because you run such a really good school. And thank you so much for what you do. And you've got a tremendous staff, and we're all very appreciative of what you do and how you do it. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Tammy, are you still there? This is Todd.
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Yeah, are you gonna be around tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
And set up some kind of time to meet, so my manpower just got shortened a little bit, so I just want to make sure we got everything covered.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a number of volunteers for Friday afternoon, Friday night too. So
Okay.
there's things we can help with too.
Yeah, okay. I'll get a hold of you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Okay, item G under administration and legal, we've got the vending cart application by Rick Murphy with looks like a check for the fee. This is something I believe we approved last month. So it is an action item.
Elizabeth, that his application meets all of our requirements. I guess I didn't.
Yes, it does. The only thing I would like to point out is that he included confirmation of last year's insurance. His insurance did lapse May 1st. He just didn't want to re-up his insurance until he knew that he would be able to operate. He did state, I talked to him on the phone, and he did state that he was not going to operate until he kind of knew more of this guidelines for all of the COVID-19 just for businesses. So he didn't want to, I guess what I'm trying to say is he's not going to be on the road tomorrow trying to sell hot dogs. He kind of wants to see how this plays out. He wants to wait till the majority of this COVID-19 is over. He just wanted to be the first person to get a permit from the city.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the vending cart application for Rick Murphy pending his ability to get insurance, current insurance.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion. There being none, Kelly,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Let's see, we've got item H. We've got resolution 20-21 to approve the transfer of funds from the EDA to the general fund. Elizabeth, you want to talk about that?
Yes, so if you remember back in January, you voted on another resolution that was moved to move $10,000 from the EDA to the general fund. And that was not appropriately budgeted. During that same meeting, because the EDA board voted to contract with CETA, which we now have Mitch with us, they moved their budget around. And because the city was looking at creating the communications director position, the EDA board back on January 8th voted to move $15,000 from the EDA budget back into the general fund to help support the funding of that communications director position. Since we now have hired Courtney Schaefer and he is in that position, I thought it would be an appropriate time now to officially move that money from the EDA fund back into the general fund.
I'll move approval of resolution 2021.
Got a motion to approve 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, David Freeze. Further discussion? There being none, Kelly,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Thank you. We've got a liquor license ordinance 146. Bob, you still on there? Who's gonna give us a condensed version of what we're doing here, or is there a condensed version?
I can speak with it,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. I actually worked with one of Bob's associates in crafting this. And so the ordinance that was in the packet very similarly resembles the state's. It's a little more concise in a few of the different spots in a few of the subdivisions, but I didn't see anything that would prohibit any of our current businesses or any of our future businesses. I did review the plans to make sure they aligned with, or the ordinance to make sure it aligns with our current liquor licenses. And then I also reviewed it with Ann Fahey Gust, who is the owner of the brewery, to make sure that it aligned with her plan as well. There's only one, since the weekend and discussing with Bob's associate, there's one change that I am proposing, and that is in it's in the area when it discusses, I'm trying to bring it up on my computer here. So it's in section 3, subdivision 6, parens B and C. It's in discussions for outdoor areas. The ordinance that was in the packet talks about the outdoor area being that it needed to be directly off of the building. This gives Anne a few difficulties with the brewery, just in the fact that she's in an existing building and she can't have access to her patio directly from her building because the fireplace is in the way. And so the way she has it is she has marked lines out the front door, and she'll have it gated in her plans to the outdoor area, patio area. And so we just reworded that a little bit to read: the outdoor area is completely enclosed by a fence or other barrier preventing any external ingress or egress from the area except for the designated gate entrances and exits. And then also for paren C, we put access to the outdoor area is available only through the interior portions of the licensed premises or a clearly marked designated pathway that is also immediately adjacent to the building or structure compromising the remainder of the licensed premises. Speaking with Bob's associate, this doesn't go against any state ordinances or anything like that, so the state can word it in that manner.
And Mayor, if I can say, the new technology left me a little slow there to unmute. I apologize. And yes, we had our best liquor guy on this ordinance. So you can have the confidence that our liquor guy was on it.
8 years of law school to be the best liquor guy, huh?
Right? I mean, you gotta specialize in something. So, you know.
So Bobby, you're good with this ordinance? You think it's a good, solid one for our community? It's appropriate and it'll help us get to where we want to be?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of had the trifecta of objectives. One was just to update your ordinance. Your old ordinance was old, as I said. You have a brewery coming to town, and we wanted to make accommodation for some of your downtown business arrangements. So we've kind of hit, I think, the high points of what you wanted to achieve, and it's a good ordinance. So yeah.
And it addresses the golf course situation.
Right. Correct. Yeah. That should have been included in my three things, I guess.
Are you looking for a motion, Mayor?
You may.
I will make a motion to approve liquor license ordinance 146 with the adjustments that the city administrator made.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion, questions? Long overdue update here. There being none, Kelly,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
I'll vote aye also. Thank you, everyone. Item J is a resolution 20-22 approving the updated fee schedule for 2020. Elizabeth, what are we doing there?
So all this is doing is we need to add actual breweries, and
Oh,
because
sure.
we added micro distilleries as well to our ordinance, we need to set the fees for that. So you see in your packet, I kind of left a blank where I left. So there's two separate categories based on how many barrels they're producing. But I combined it into just on sale and off sale minus how many barrels they're producing. And I did that based on the fact that's what the majority of the other cities throughout Minnesota did. And then I did the same thing with micro distillery. There's either off sale or a cocktail room as described in the ordinance. And then our ordinance also has new subdivision for culinary classes. And so that I didn't know if we wanted to set a price for per event or an annual. And that's just if someone is hosting a culinary class and they wanted to cook with alcohol. Doing a little bit of research for cities approximately our size. I found that for on sale, it was for breweries, it was anywhere between $300 and about $450. And then for off sale, it was anywhere between $200 and $400. Obviously council can do as they want, but that was just a slight comparison to other cities around the state of our size.
It's considerably cheaper than the other license fees. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I want to help Ann all I can, but I look at the on sale pub brew tap room type thing, and it's blank, but the combination on off sale intoxicating liquor, which is liquor. I'm good with it. Whatever the council wants to do here.
That's just because usually typically liquor, anything involving liquor is quite a bit more.
Sure.
So just because she would be limited to only beer, she would not be able to sell any kind of liquor out of her brewery, so.
So like, and I'm learning and I don't know what she's gonna offer, but I mean like growlers, most breweries fill and you leave with growlers. Is that something? Do you?
Yeah, I think she's planning on that.
Okay. And that's something we allow for in our code?
Yep, that is. So her plans is obviously to have the tap room, which would be her on sale. And then she would also need to purchase the off sale license, which then would allow her to sell growlers per the ordinance that was just passed. So she would actually have to buy both an on sale and an off sale to be able to provide both those services.
Okay. Question for Elizabeth, comments? It's an action item.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance or resolution 20-22, approving the schedule fees.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion, comments, questions?
Did I miss something, Elizabeth?
No, you guys actually have to set the fees, so decide what the fees were.
Oh, all right. I didn't
I
understand.
kind of left you a range, so I'm not sure exactly what, because when we put the ordinance together at our last council meeting, there wasn't any direction on fees on what council actually wanted to charge for that.
Like the minimum 300 and
Go
200.
through each item and set a fee.
Yeah, that would be, so we would need the on sale brewery, off sale micro distillery, and then on sale micro distillery, and then the culinary classes. So those 5 items we need to set fees.
All these other fees are a suggestion or they're already cast in concrete?
So all the other fees are our current fees that we already passed in January. So we're just adding the brewery fees and then the micro distillery fees.
And you gave an estimate on these, like the average for on sale brew pubs and off sale brew pubs, and did you provide like a sample?
I did not in the packet, but the on sale was anywhere from 300 to about 450. And then the off sale was anywhere from 200 to 400.
Okay, council, what are your thoughts?
I like to keep the fees low, so 300 and 200 be fine.
I'll second. Is this included or do we have to do this as a separate item?
We've got to amend your motion because we needed to set those fees. So your original motion was to approve them.
Yes, sir.
But we hadn't set the fees yet. So maybe you want to walk back and do your original motion over and make those recommendations on fees.
I'll make a promotion to approve our resolution with the addition of the $300 fee and the $200 fee as Councilman Johnson suggested.
And I'll second that amendment.
Got a motion and a second. Further questions or discussion?
Elizabeth, is the brewery also subject then to the Sunday liquor sales?
So they're not. It's actually Minnesota state statute that they can operate on Sundays as a brewery just with their brewer's license. So they don't need to purchase a separate Sunday liquor license because they aren't selling liquor, they're selling beer.
Any other questions, comments?
So is the 300 and 200, is that for both brewery and micro distillery? Are you keeping the fees the same for both of them? And then what about the culinary classes? Did you want to do per event or annual?
I would do per event.
$25 or something per event, or?
We'll make it $25 per event for culinary classes.
Jason, you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
So have we got them all defined now, Elizabeth?
We do. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience on that.
Any further discussion or questions or comments? There being none, Kelly,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Resolution passes. There was no planning commission meeting this month. We'll move to Public Works and Engineering. Item A under that is the pool discussion. I think Todd's in the building. So who wants to kick this off? I see we're all over the map as far as other communities on what they're planning on doing, but Todd's got some insights and I think he wants to share them with us.
Well, as you know, it's kind of a hot topic. So we got pools that are opening, pools that are closing all around us. So I guess there's some concern on guidelines at the pool. Pat's got some safety concerns with her staff. So I think we need to open it up to discussion here and get your views. I don't want me to make the total decision to open or close the pool. So
what's the safety concerns?
What's that?
What are the safety concerns?
Well, training for the lifeguards, that's all changed. And I think Pat is here with me today too. So the training has changed because of the virus, as far as rescue, and there's just a lot of things we need to talk about before we're just gonna open the pool. So.
And I can kind of hop in just because I know I'm at a computer and Todd's not, and we discussed it earlier today. So we went over the CDC guidelines for swimming pools and the guidelines that they have. I should preface this by saying currently swimming pools cannot be open under the current governor's order. It specifically says that outdoor recreational pools cannot be open. So that's the order that goes through May 31st. I don't know what he's going to do in any future orders. So what we discussed tonight would be if the governor does not include swimming pools to be closed in any future executive orders. So I just want to preface that. But if the governor were to open swimming pools and we were able to open, looking at the CDC guidelines, I just want to make everyone aware the challenges that we would be facing. So first off, it says that if anyone is not in a pool, they should be wearing a face mask. So I don't know if we're going to be making our lifeguards wear face masks in 80 to 100 degree weather. It also says that all surfaces have to be sanitized at least once a day. So that's tables, chairs, all railings, all surfaces in the restrooms. things like that. It also says that suggestion was to provide barriers inside pools so that individuals can remain at least 6 feet apart. So that's something that our pool is not set up for, is to have lane dividers. So I'm not sure if that's something that if we're going to open the pool and we're adhering to CDC guidelines, these are just all things that we need to talk about, as well as they recommend that we need to set some kind of boundaries on the pool deck as well to make sure that individuals are staying 6 feet apart as well, since the CDC has said that they don't foresee the 6 feet social distancing going away. Even if we can gather in larger gatherings, they're still suggesting that the 6 feet of separation will be there. They have quite a bit more. Those are just kind of some of the highlights of the challenges that we're facing. So that's why we're bringing it to council, just because I don't think people realize how much thought and work will need to go into opening the pool. It's more than just opening the pool and letting children come in. I know Pat can speak, but I think you can probably hear me a little bit better than Pat at City Hall, but I know one thing that she's facing is that Red Cross is not providing any trainings right now. So any lifeguards that we hire, we're going to have to figure out an alternate way of training them, because Red Cross is not doing any trainings. All previous lifeguards have been trained on mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. We can no longer do that. They need to be trained on the bags. So not only we'd have to get that equipment, which it sounds like our fire department would be able to provide, but we would not.
I don't want to interrupt, but I don't think they can even do the bags anymore.
Okay.
Am I right, David?
You're on mute, David.
Muted, David.
Do you know anything on that, David? On the bagging? I didn't think you could even bag anymore. I thought everything they had to be shot. And that's one of my concerns for the rescue.
There's guidelines to using the BVM for CPR purposes, yes, but I mean, that's a whole nother kit and caboodle in itself. But right now we can still do BVMs on calls, but there's guidelines to it.
Okay.
David, can you, if at some point we're able to look at opening the pool, can the fire department help? Can they help train our lifeguards with that equipment, or what does that look like? Or is there other training that they would take for that equipment?
We had discussed that yesterday a little bit at City Hall, and I'm not confident in saying or volunteering the department yet. I think if we talk to the fire chief and got some suggestions from him, that might be a possibility, in being able to provide some of the fundamentals on that kind of care.
And that would address the CPR certifications, but there's still like the water rescue certification that would be required from Red Cross. So, I mean, the fire department can do the basic CPR, but there's a lot more that goes into lifeguard training than just the CPR aspect, because there is the actual water rescue. So
I can't get any of that right now.
Make sure everybody's healthy.
Yeah. So right now the Red Cross.
Yes, but we got to make sure that everybody's staying healthy and safe here, including my staff. We got guys going up there all the time, so.
I think it is important to note the logistics of this too. As Elizabeth mentioned earlier, it's not as simple as just opening the pool and letting things run loose. You have to have the barriers in place. You have to sanitize. There are all these extra restrictions that go on with, even if we do open. I am personally someone with a compromised immune system that is very terrified during these times on what my life and my family's lives hold. So I would not be comfortable opening the Pine Island pool for the entire 2020 season. I care about other people in this community, and I want to protect them as much as possible.
Kelly, as somebody with a compromised immune system, though, you would avoid the pool personally. I mean, that's a correct personal decision for you, right? I talked to Elizabeth at length about this, and right now, if we got to make a decision today, we can't really, I don't think we can say we would open the pool because it's in violation of governor's orders. And then it brings into, our insurance coverage and some of those kinds of things. I'm not one that's very quick to say we're not going to open it all summer. I certainly would like, if we get the opportunity and the wherewithal and the resources to open it, I would like to. I think tonight we have to look at not opening it with the provision that we would, if there's some new state governor's orders that we possibly could, that we would look at that and call a special meeting.
My question is, with those guidelines, how many of those guidelines are suggestions versus regulations or law? Because, I mean, there's a difference that we can, when we start looking at ahead, we can say these are guidelines. That's something that they're suggesting, and it doesn't mean that we have to do it. So I understand we have to look at the legality of it and wanting to make sure that we protect ourselves with insurance and all that. But I also want to be aware that if there's suggestions, it doesn't mean it has to be done. You know, if they're talking about putting barriers in a pool, I think everyone in attendance right now knows that's not even feasible.
Yeah.
And that's where right now it's hard, because currently in the governor's order, we cannot open the pool. So we're speaking hypothetically anyways.
Yes.
All the CDC guidelines are just those, they're guidelines, they're recommendations. Obviously the governor can change those with his executive orders as what he determines we need to follow and what we don't need to follow. And Bob, pipe in if I'm misspeaking here. But so I think one, Councilor Hildebrand is right in the fact that we're currently, we really cannot open. The discussion is whether we think if the governor does allow us to open in the future, whether we want to do that or not. It would be really nice if the state provided us with some guidelines on how we can operate. There's a lot that we do need to consider, whether how we check children into the pool. Something else we also might want to consider is the majority of the larger cities around us are closed as well. And so whether we will have an influx in people trying to use the pool when we're trying to operate at minimal capacities as well. I'm guessing that if we are able to open, again, this is purely a guess, but I'm guessing if we are able to open, then we will have to operate at minimal capacities. So how are we going to regulate whether we have people from Rochester using the pool, or if we're going to just save attendance for Pine Island citizens? These are all things that are questions that we have come up with. That,
well, it sounds like to me that even if they say it can open, we can't get them trained anyway. So, you know, and all they're going to be doing is separating kids all day. I mean, I'd love to see the pool open, but you know, if they can't get trained, they can't get trained.
I'd like to give it a week. I'd like to see if there's any kind of new regulations that come down. I mean, just everything is so fluid right now. There will be lifeguards looking for work because Rochester's not going to have any lifeguards. I mean, lifeguards, I think we can solve, but it's social distancing and all the other stuff is just very difficult unless he does change something, you know, and maybe he will. I can't believe we're unique in this situation. There's a lot of towns in this state that have pools, and I can't believe that somebody hasn't got his ear on what to do here, where Todd and Elizabeth are expound. I mean, we're not getting any guidelines. We're not getting anything to say this is what you need to do. Everything is just conjecture at this point, and I just don't think so.
Well,
but I think it will be addressed in the next 8-10 days. I think that is going to happen because we're not unique. I mean, somebody's going to have to talk about it. So, and maybe at that point we just go, okay, we're down. We're not opening.
I've been in contact
these restrictions
with the Department of Health, and I'm not getting anywhere. To me, that's their job. They should be helping us with some kind of guidelines, and I'm not getting it. So,
Elizabeth or Bob, can we simply table this with the understanding that if there's new state guidelines, we'll look at it, or do we need a definite?
well,
Can we table it until there's new state guidelines?
we can definitely table it as long as council would like to. One thing that I would like to bring up that I know is I don't want to base the decision on funds, but the longer we do wait to open the pool, the more pool costs money. We never come out ahead on the pool. We know that it's a public service that we provide for kids in the city to use. However, the longer that we do wait to open the pool, the more we lose in operating costs. No matter what, we're not going to be able to have swimming lessons. That right there is a huge chunk of revenue that we do make off of the pool. And every week that we do wait, that's less revenue that we would bring in on the pool. And I know it's not about revenues because we expect to not make money on the pool. However, operating costs will most likely stay about the same. So the longer that we hold off on opening the pool, the more money it is going to cost us. And with budgets extremely tight during this, all the COVID-19, my suggestion would be if we do table this, just to table it a week, maybe see what the governor says. If the governor changes guidelines, possibly have a special council meeting. I would not recommend tabling it until our June 16th meeting, just because I think that would be too far away to have the pool, because we would still need to advertise and get guards. Just getting guards would probably minimally take 2 to 3 weeks. Then if we have another 2 weeks of training, we probably need a good 4 weeks notice to even be able to open the pool.
Todd, Todd, hear me? What if the pool, so, I mean, if we do nothing with the pool right now, I mean, you're not filling it, there's no maintenance or.
Yeah, we are gonna fill it.
You are going to fill it regardless.
It's a brand new pool and we want to make sure that it went through the winter without any problems.
All right.
We are going to fill the pool and run things to make sure, just because we don't want to sit 2 years and then all of a sudden we say, okay, now we can open the pool and then we got problems. If we got problems, we want to know right now. So we are going to fill the pool. So, so the governor.
Mayor, are you looking for a motion that we can table this until we get more direction from the state?
I'm looking for your council wishes.
I would agree that I would like, before we make any decisions against using the pool, I'd like to get some more input from the state. And like I said, if we need to wait a week to push that out, I think that'd be the best service we could provide to the community.
I agree.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion that we forego this, or we wait a week to find out what's going on with the state, and then we can come back and we can make a decision on what we can do at the pool.
I'll second.
Well, so I guess my question is, are we, no matter what, coming back in a week and holding a special session, or are we only holding a special session if guidelines are changing?
Yeah, if something changes.
Okay.
Something's changing.
Yep, Mayor and Council, just to be mentally prepared for it, the governor's orders are equivalent to laws. We have to comply with them. The governor has had a habit of incorporating by reference policies or rules that are adopted by agencies. So he may say on pools, public pools are open subject to rules to be adopted by the Department of Health. And it could take another week after the governor's order for the Department of Health to come out with those rules. So I want to be clear that, I mean, I'm sorry to be the deliverer of bad news, but the governor may act in a week and it may take another week for the Department of Health to actually come out with the rules governing public pools. So.
Yeah, I was actually targeting June 1, but a week, that's up to you guys.
I agree. I would like to table this and not act hastily to close the pool, but we're going to need a special meeting regardless then to either open it or close it is what Elizabeth is asking. So do we consider amending the motion to not open it until there's further guideline? I mean, that way if guidelines dictate that this thing can't open, then we don't require a special meeting. I guess I don't care either way. Elizabeth, isn't that kind of what you were alluding to?
Yeah, I mean, if the governor's next order says that pools still remain closed, I think it's a moot point for it to be discussed again, because we can't open under the governor's next executive order. If his next executive order discludes pools, then I think it will be open for discussion. So my recommendation maybe would be, if this is the path you're going on, to make a motion that maybe the pool remain closed as long as noted in an executive order. And if it is allowed to open, then we can reconvene under a special meeting.
Yep.
Obviously, this is why I'm not on council, because my motions are awful.
And we have more information that you guys didn't get either that we can get to you to read, so.
Well, and if I can just say, the
Changes
motion
every
that's
day.
pending, that's been made and seconded, I think says, Elizabeth, what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
The motion was to table this item until the law is changed or clarified, and that's what you just said.
And I do agree with a lot of the discussion we've been having tonight. This is, as Mayor Steele said, a very fluid time right now. We owe it to people in this community to look at those regulations and see if we were to open, how exactly we need to be operating.
Right. I mean, we asked these people to go somewhere else to swim 2 years ago. And, you know, and I don't want to be the only pool in the area that isn't open. And we won't be. There's already pools that have been announced to close. And so, like I told Elizabeth and Todd earlier, I don't want to be the first to close and I don't want to be the last to close. I just want to watch what's happening, and it is fluid, and there could be a change. Once again, we're not unique in this situation. I'm sure Bob's got plenty of cities they represent that have pools that are kind of wrestling with this same problem. It will be addressed at some point. Now, when that is, I don't know, but I think just to table it and watch what happens, keep the option open.
That's why Mayor, that's why I'm wording my motion as it is because, I mean, if anything, if we watch the current, you know, administration in the governor's office, it's changing, it seems very frequently. So I'll leave my motion as is, that we reconvene when things are changed or updated, and we can go from there and try to keep it simple.
And Jace, did you want to amend your second also?
Yep, second.
Any further discussion on this? Thanks, Todd. All right, well, we'll go Kelly.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye also. So there we go.
Thank you.
We'll revisit it when we need to.
Pat, thank you.
Item B on public. Somebody say something?
I know Pat Bronk is there, and just recognizing her and thanking her for her work and her input on this.
Right. Thank you, Pat. You're a sweetie. Request for ordinance update regarding sewer connection for garage drains.
Yeah, that's me here. Apparently that they're allowing to hook garage drains to the sanitary sewer. I'm not a big fan of that.
Nope.
I guess I didn't know that was happening. But I'd like to maybe work with Craig on that and get some wording, change that. I'd like, that should be daylighted. I don't like it going, because I'm getting I get grit, and you got the possibility of hazardous waste getting into the garage, gasolines, oils.
Typically, as Mr. Mayor, I'll just chime in for a minute. I have 20 years in the automotive industry managing a shop, and typically the floor drain in an automotive shop has got a sump that where the oils and the hazardous, the coolants and things settle out, that gets pumped. So yeah, something like that to protect our sanitary water certainly is prudent.
I think you're talking residential also, aren't you, Todd?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
the commercials are pretty good about having a separator. But it's the residential that I'm nervous about. I mean, I just found out here the other day that they were allowing, I guess I didn't realize that. I just think that's a no-no. But
And they're connecting to the sewer, or they're connecting to the stormwater?
no, sewer.
Holy cow, I didn't know that either. That's not good, guys.
Todd, who's they? You said they're letting them.
Somebody's
Our building inspector, the state, it's a state code.
Okay.
Our ordinance doesn't state anything in there about correcting that. So they're just going off the state code. So our inspectors are doing the right thing. They're allowing it. But when I heard that, I said, that's got to change. So we need to We have nothing in our ordinance about garage drains.
Craig, what do you recommend, something like a commercial sump to separate out that oil and things that could come out of a vehicle? You're
Okay,
muted.
I'm unmuted now. Okay, so yeah, like Todd said, ideally they daylight out into a location where it can kind of dissipate across a lawn or something like that instead of coming out into the sanitary sewer. But yeah, we'll look into that a little bit more if council gives us that direction and come back with a recommendation.
We can't make it retroactive. We've got to just say from here on out, because you've got people connected. I didn't know that was happening. That's not a good situation. People take their oil and they dump it down the drain, and then it goes into the groundwater. It's just not a great situation. We have to address it.
And that's not to say that everybody that's got their garage connected to the septic sewer is running their oil down it, right? 80% of the rules are for 20% of the people, but we've certainly got to protect our groundwater. So
It's just that accidental gas can spill.
Yeah.
And goes down the drain. I really don't need that in the sewer system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion to direct, city staff and engineering to work on a new procedure for that plumbing and a new ordinance. Does that work?
Take a second.
Thank you.
Discussion, questions? Kelly,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd. Public input.
I know we're running late, but I wanted to say something super duper quickly. I ran for city council a couple of years ago as a concerned citizen. I hope that these discussions we have during council meetings do not reflect anything but my personal opinion. I am not here on behalf of the chamber or any other organization in town. I just want everyone to understand that the opinions that I may vocalize are that of my own personal opinion. Again, I'm not here to represent anyone else.
Thank you. Public input. Greg? You want to say something? Okay.
Nope.
Legal, Robert Vost, is he gone?
I'm still here, Mayor. I couldn't possibly tear myself away. I have nothing to say.
All quiet on the Western Front.
How's your other meeting going, Bob? Are they done yet?
Funny, Counselor, and yes.
Yeah.
Claims.
I'll make a motion to approve claims.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve claims. Discussion. We have to remember, if we have some kind of transitional situation, we got to make sure we always approve all the claims. All those, no. Kelly,
Aye.
David. Mike,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Thank you. Department monthly reports. Rachel, you've been sitting there so patient through all this. Did you want to say something?
Hi, I would sure love to say something. I did submit a report to the council packet, and I would like to note that one of those statements is incorrect. We're not going to be offering the computer usage until May 26th. That's going to be Tuesday next week. Basically, we're going to allow 3 people by appointment only to come in and use the computers or faxes or printers or whatever they need to use for 45 minutes at a time. So it's going to be a nice little, and then people can leave. And at the top of the next hour, we'll be able to have 3 more people if they so choose to come in. But we've been having curbside pickup has been happening and it's been popular. We had 37 people the first week and then 33 the following week. So a lot of people are coming and getting stuff. So that's been great to see. Summer reading program is going to happen this year. Heidi's been really, really busy getting stuff together and planned. And I know that all the elementary school kids got a little video with her and Kayla Jordan, who's the librarian in the school, for their media specialists in their last week of school here. Otherwise, I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that our ebook CERC has been way up, if you can imagine that. In March, we had 270 ebook or e-audiobook downloads. Last month with 379, and in April it was 416. So people are using us, even though we're not able to be fully open. And I just wanted to remind everyone that we are looking at ways to be open for folks. I'm looking at maybe sometime in June having appointments for people to come in to use the library in either individual groups, like a family group, or maybe 2 or 3 people like we're doing for the computers. But as everything else, it's up in the air. So thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Public Works, Todd, you got anything to say? Public Works?
Yeah, we're good, Rob.
Okay. Mitch? Anything from the EDA you want to report?
Just want to say thank you. I know I've been on for just over a month. I'm just trying to work on getting out in the community and meeting some of the business owners, and working on a couple of things with the fire department as well, as far as some grants to hopefully help tide some of the extra costs that they've the COVID-19 pandemic.
Great.
Yeah, that's about it.
Thanks, Mitch. Okay, that being said, I think the other department, fire department, anything from David, anything from the fire department?
It looks like we, in your council packet, you received some pictures of the new engine that the city purchased here just this last fall. And we should be taking possession of that vehicle here hopefully within the next 2 weeks. The department's been extremely busy already this month. We've had a couple of structure fires and we've had some really good responses from our personnel. So that's been going really well, and hopefully we've been practicing a duty crew model over the last 3.5 months, and we might be able to start moving back towards normal responses here over the next week to 2 weeks. So that'll be good news as well. So it's been a busy couple of months.
Thank you, David. Any other committee reports, sheriff, cemetery, anything?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I know City Hall and the License Bureau doesn't have a report, but I would just kind of like to give an update just for any of the public who is listening. So City Hall, we reopened this week to appointment only. So we are letting people of the public come in and conduct city business. Same with the License Bureau. If they need to do any title work, they can call, make an appointment. And then we'll just meet them at the doors, let them in and conduct the business. We are still doing water payments, either through the Dropbox, phone, or online, and same thing with tabs. We aren't doing those in person. Those are the same process in the Dropbox. If an individual just puts their renewal slip with their insurance information and a check or a money order for the proper amount, then we'll process those and mail them back.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any other items other than, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Stephanie has.
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah, who's I?
This is Stephanie.
Oh, hi, Steph. Yeah.
I just wanted to thank David Hewitt for the donation to the library for their signs, for their curbside pickup. That was amazing, and it looks a whole lot better than the cardboard. No offense, Rachel. And that was very generous of you, so thank you very much.
Please, you're welcome. I appreciate doing it. It's a blessing for our family. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, everyone.